Topics, man. It's super hot. This subject is pretty hot right now. It's been hot for a while, but it's pretty important. Listen to this clip.
I'm Olivia Rondo, and I started wrestling on the boys team in high school. At first, it was really tough. During my freshman year, I won my first match, then lost all of the others because of my inexperience and the strength difference. I didn't want to go through those losses again, so during the off-season, I worked 10 times as hard, competed in national tournaments, and got mentally and physically stronger. That next year, I went on a winning streak and even wrestled on varsity. Because I was forced to adapt to wrestling with a biological disadvantage, I went on to dominate the women's arena. I became a 3-time state champion, 6-time All-American, and 3-time national champion. I was also part of the 2017 Olympic development team. For college, I was recruited to a women's team with the expectation that I would be only competing against other biological women. That is what I believe to be fair. Very few women can hold their own against men in combat sports. I've only been able to do so with my experience and work ethic. Now we have to deal with biological men in women's sports. Biologically male MMA fighter Fallon Fox fractured their opponent's skull during a fight.
But that was not what was going on here. What was going on here was this woman who used to be a man for 32 years transitioned to being a woman, and it didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching it. It was like watching a man fight a woman. That's what I was watching. I was like, this isn't like particularly, she wasn't particularly skillful. It wasn't like she had like some unbelievable background in judo, like Ronda Rousey or something like that. It wasn't that. You were just literally watching a former man beat up women.
Even while transitioning, estrogen will not change someone's height, arm span, lung capacity, or bone structure. It will not erase all of their male strength. Does this sound fair? It's becoming a real safety and equality issue for real female athletes, yet we are expected to be okay with it, all in the name of diversity. The original American feminists fought hard to get separate spaces for women to compete against each other, and now the left is erasing that progress. Nothing is equal about biological men invading women's spaces.
So the issue about transgender women competing against naturally born women, I feel strongly about it, and I just don't feel like it should be. I kind of don't even understand how it is even become a thing. It some of it I just believe is lunacy, and I can't put any stronger than that. That you would have somebody that is born genetically as a man with certain advantages, and they swear up and down about hormone therapy and all kind of other things, but that does not change a lot of other physical characteristics, like the young lady said in the video, length of bones and size and endurance. Those things don't change. So it just seems incredibly stupid as when feminists fought for female sports, and when you hear the women of the WNBA clamoring for attention and clamoring for their piece of the pie when it comes to sports and to be treated fairly, this just seems like a complete slap in the face to all those people, that you would let people determine who a woman is and their ability to compete, and then go out there and compete under the guise that they change their gender based on the way that they feel. That to me is a complete slap in the face, and it's insane to me. I don't see any other way around it, man. That's complete insanity. When that one woman, when they talked about the lady that was hired by the NCAA, and she said she identified as a Black woman and she was really white, I think that makes 100 times more sense than somebody identifying as a different sex in the ability, in saying that they have the ability to compete. If you want to dress any way you want to do, or have people call you in pronouns, that's your prerogative. I don't care about that. But when it comes to the competition, that's a different story, and I just feel like it's a different issue.
Don, what you think, man?
I have to agree. I mean, 100% what Charles is saying. I mean, I as a girl dad, as a parent, as a dad that has daughters that competed in sports, I wouldn't allow my daughter to play against a transgender. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just the way I feel. It's not that I'm homophobic or anything like that. It's just the fact that it's not fair, and it's ridiculous to think that I can't understand the you know the I don't I can't understand the process of allowing this to come into to play. I mean, it's starting to, Leah Thomas, who won who was the first transgender athlete last year to win a collegiate event in swimming, just last year now. So it's here. And and she Leah Thomas came in as a freshman as a man, took a year off, received that hormone therapy for a year, according to the rules. I guess that's the NCAA rules. You have to be on that hormone therapy for at least a year. And I don't, and all of a sudden that's supposed to make it legal
Fair.
or make it even. There's no way. Your heart, studies show that your heart, the male heart is much bigger, and the bone structure, the height, the length, the hands, the feet, everything is bigger. And you're going to try to say that's going to make things even, an even playing field? There's no way. It's still scientists even said it's still an advantage for a male who's received those hormone treatments. They still have a distinctive advantage. So I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I think they should have create a whole new sport for the transgender athletes where they can compete against each other. But there's no way it's not fair for you to come in and change the game, and change women's sports. I mean, it's going to change everything. It's going to cause complete chaos within women's sports, because a lot of parents is not going to, as those transgender athletes are winning and kicking butt, it's going to cause some serious issues in my book.
Yeah. Greg, what you
Don,
think?
I think there's some things that you mentioned there that I like to unpack a little bit too. And are you guys familiar with the name Trish Bostrom? Trish Bostrom is a Husky, and I only ask that because we're all Huskies. If you guys knew that name, and she was a tennis player that played tennis at the University of Washington. And when she was coming up through high school, Trish is a generation before us. She couldn't play on the tennis team at her high school in Seattle because they didn't have a girls' team, and she wasn't allowed to play on the boys' team. So she would practice with the boys, but didn't get to participate in meets. When she went to the University of Washington, she actually sued and brought forth legislation that kind of was the precursor to Title IX. Title IX was passed the year she left the University of Washington. So for those of you out there listening, you don't know what Title IX is. It basically states that you cannot have discrimination in sports that are funded by federal dollars. So anything that's school related and has sports teams, you can't practice discrimination. So girls should have the same opportunity as boys based on the number of girls that are in the school. So if there are 50% girls in the school, you should have 50% of the sports opportunities for girls and young ladies. I think this, starts to go down the line of looking at what Title IX really meant. And now are folks using this as an opportunity to redefine what gender is and means? And I think ultimately there's going to be some court cases that come out of this. And let me go on the record to state this. I think anyone who wants to identify as, something, other than what they were born should have the right to do that and, pursue that as they may. I think, Don, where you were going when you were talking about having another category to participate makes some sense. Here's the thing. Today in 2023, we have different sports teams for different genders. There's male teams, there's female teams. So we've already said that there's a difference. We have said there is a difference because we have sports teams for the different genders. And if we're going to go down this road, are we going to say that genders are fluid and they don't matter? And if so, are we going to go back and look at Title IX and say, all right, since gender's fluid, it doesn't matter. We'll give everybody an opportunity to try out, and the best will make the teams. And you could get in a situation where, because, males have the physiology that probably gives them an advantage, that all the sports teams would be male. And so that's where I think this whole Title IX legislation could push the envelope on redefining what gender means in our country nationally, and redistribute things because of that, which to me is, going down the road that I think people want to go. That's where I think this is really truly coming from at the end of the day. I think there's a push to redefine gender in our country, which, I'm not today going to sit here and tell you what's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I really think that that's where we're going. Now, as a person who's coached girls sports, and I don't just have daughters, but I coached girls basketball for 25 years. One of the things I was really adamant about was giving our young ladies every opportunity that our young men have. And if we do not continue to protect the opportunities for young ladies, they're going to lose those opportunities. Our young ladies aren't going to be able to compete for scholarships. They aren't going to get the necessary resources that they need in order to have that success in some way, shape, or form. Because if indeed the gender politics get into this and we start defining this differently, and there are people who are more physically gifted and talented who want to identify as ladies, and we have to respect and give them that opportunity, it's going to take away opportunities for these other young ladies. So I think this is a deeper deal than just the right to play or whatever. I think this is something that's pushing the envelope to get this issue in front of the Supreme Court eventually to define gender in our country.
So yeah, the definition, one of the reasons that what you're saying it rings so true and what makes a lot of sense is the fact that we can't define the definition of, forget everything else, what a woman is. Mm-hmm. And so Title IX was specifically really made to protect women and women's sports. But now everybody's having a tough time defining what a woman is, which is completely ridiculous. Because I think it's really simple. I don't really think there's a lot of, it's just political. And there's not a real, nobody's confused. There's no confusion on this issue. Everybody knows. I mean, biology is biology. There's male and there's female, period. All right. Now, if you want to get into the argument of gender and gender identity, that's a different story. And whatever you want to identify it as and be called, that's fine, but it does not make you biologically male or biologically female because you identify as such. And we have decided as a world community that there are differences, not just the United States. The Olympics are along this line too. As a world community, there's differences, and not we have decided, biology has decided. Whichever way you think of that, whether you are a creationist or you are an evolutionist, biology has decided that there are in the human species, there's male and female. And just the fairness of it makes a lot of sense. And here's a point that, at some point in time, we weren't ready for what we were about to see, and we weren't ready for what transpired. But somebody you got to give it up to. You got to give the total respect up to this one person, and that's Caitlyn Jenner. So what Caitlyn Jenner did was whooped all the men's asses while that person identified as a man, and then made that transition and did in the way that at the time he felt he wanted to identify as a woman and now identifies as a woman. And that's perfectly fine. And he did both. He competed as a man though. And he competed against the best in the world as a man because that's where his biological advantage took him. Now, his competitive advantage, he was better than all of them too. So he competed and did it there. So if you're in the true competition, you can't flip the script, compete as a man, take some time off, and then go compete against the women. That is cowardly. I don't want to go there with how low I think that is, but I just can't imagine the type of cowardness that takes to just drop out and not compete. I'm a competitor, man. You're gonna compete with the people that have, I'm not going to kindergarten to compete against kindergarten kids at recess and dribble between the legs and dunk on them at recess. Not happening. It's just is what it is. It's fairness and competition, and that's what it's about. There's no confusion. This is politics.
I just feel like, we're combining two things that shouldn't have a lot to do with one another. And in those ways, I agree with you, Charles, that identity and who you are as a person that you want to identify is one set of things. And then sports and competition can be another. There's always this age-old debate, at early ages when kids are playing. Do we keep score? Do we, have a winner and a loser? Or do we just let everybody play and everybody have fun? And that's a way to look at it. But when you come down to sports in and of itself, it's about competition. It's about competing. And in competing, there are winners and there are losers. And if you're going to set up a scenario where folks who have inherent built-in advantages over another group, then it creates an uneven playing field. And if you're going to create an uneven playing field, then truly, what are the benefits that kids are going to get out of playing sports? And, all of us play professional football. We used our football skill and talent to get money for a certain number of years, but we use the lessons that we learned out of football far longer in our lives than we did on the playing field. So I think we're doing our young people a disservice when we're putting them in a scenario that creates an inherent disadvantages and advantages for others. So I think we're losing the essence of sports. I think this is, again, an attempt to force a redefinition, and they're using sports as a way to do that. And that, again, to me, isn't what, our kids are getting into sports and playing for. I think at the end of the day, we've said there is a difference. That's why there's an NBA and a WNBA. We've said there's a difference. That's why there's men's mixed martial arts and women's mixed martial arts. And because there's a difference, we have to go ahead and acknowledge that, and then create a scenario where things can be on an even playing field. And Don said it earlier, he can expand on that a little bit if he wants to, but I think if there is an opportunity for us to create, teams where transgender individuals compete against other transgender individuals, that's a much better scenario to me.
Hey, I just real fast, and I say no. I'm gonna tell you why, because it's all about being a coward. Period. That's all this is about. You are a coward if you do that. You know why? Let me tell you why. You don't see women, naturally born women that identify as men, competing against men. You don't see that.
There absolutely are.
There are some, but you don't see that. That's not what you see. You do not see that as being the norm. You see a lot of men changing their gender and competing against women. And
I don't think this is really a sports issue, though, Chuck. I disagree with you there. I think that I don't think there's a whole bunch of men out there that are going to go change their gender just so they can be better competitors.
No, I didn't say there were a whole lot.
I don't think that's the issue at all.
Yeah,
I think it's. I don't think it's. I believe that is the. I really don't think this is a sports issue.
You won't see a woman transition and try to as a man competing, because biologically it's not possible to compete at that level.
Exactly.
None of them are winning. I mean, they're like like Greg said, there are women who are who now transition to be a man competing.
They're just not going to win and take an opportunity away from other men because they can't compete.
And that's why combat sports. Why the combat sports? Why mixed martial arts? Why boxing and why?
See, that's the thing, Chuck. We agree.
We agree on. I think strong competitive advantage to where you're doing damage, where you have the risk of putting other people in danger. Hey, go on golf. Go do golf, and even that is whack because you're playing on half of the tees are significantly different.
Yeah. Like I said, Chuck, I don't disagree with the premise behind the competitive advantage and disadvantage. I think we all agree that that's obvious. I think what I'm saying is this issue to me is more of a how do we use something to create another end goal or end game that we have and push it through this particular
You think it's
medium.
political. I understand that.
I
But
totally
I think,
so I don't think a lot of men are trying to transition so that they can have a competitive advantage. I think people
well,
from the outside are going to utilize this because it's a perfect, if
I
you
don't
look
know,
at Title
man.
IX, the way it's written, I
That
think it's a
MMA
perfect place
guy,
for that.
the dude that was in MMA, he did that without telling anybody. He did it. He changed his gender and didn't tell anybody. So that was completely
And
for
yeah,
competition.
I don't disagree that
but you know
somebody
what?
might
But
do that.
you guys are touching on something that is pretty serious now, because what if a man said, well, if I can win this $100 million tournament in martial arts, I can go transition. I can decide that I can go, just to be a woman for a while and go out there and win it.
Right,
Because
and there's no definition for woman, so you technically don't have to put a wig on. You don't have to dress up. You could just say, you know what? I feel like a woman. I'm going to be in the WNBA because I identify as a woman. As ridiculous as that sounds, there is really everything else is social constructs. So dresses, makeup, hair, all those things are things that we built in as a society. They're not biological. They don't define a woman per se. So you can just say, hey, look, you could go dress exactly as you are, exactly as we're dressed and the way we look today. Just show up and stand in line and be like, I'm a woman. I'm competing today.
Well, you talked earlier about some hormone therapy levels that they do require in order to compete in certain level of competitions.
Yeah.
So it's not just I'm saying I'm a woman and so I can.
Yeah,
compete.
they have to
that.
they have to do that for a year.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
NCAA.
So there are some built-in things there, and that's why I'm saying I don't think this is going to be something where a whole mass number of athletes are going to do it. I do think, though, the problem that I do have, being a girl dad, being someone who has fought an organization where I was coaching at, where the boys had all the choice practice times, they had all the best gyms, they got all the sponsorships, and every one of those boys had an opportunity, and rightfully so. And I'm glad, because there's tons of NBA players in the league right now coming from Seattle because of these organizations that present these. So what I was pushing for is for the same exact thing for our young ladies. They should get same number of practice times. There should be gyms set aside for them. They should have those same opportunities.
But
and
what are young ladies?
And what I'm saying is if this agenda that's clearly political to me in my brain continues to go down, and it's gender is not defined, now all of a sudden, again, I don't want to see a lot of young ladies lose opportunity because we can't define boys teams, girls teams. So now we just got to make it everybody's team, and then those who are the best get all the opportunities, because again, that's going to go back to those who have a distinct advantage getting all the opportunities. And in sports, clearly there's an advantage in being male. That's why we have girls teams. That's really the biggest concern for me, and I think other folks' agenda is going to leave a lot of young ladies behind without opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's just a strict denial of biology. Like, there's no other way around it. Like, biology defines this whole issue. There is no confusion on the issue. There is no confusion on if a person is biologically male or biologically female. That's not where this argument is. Even in the case of hermaphrodites, at a DNA level, there is a clear indication. So there is no confusion. What we have is that we have the social constructs, and society has these changes, and they're opening up society, but that does not change biology. The truth is the truth is the truth. That is a fact. It's written in stone, written in DNA. You can't change it. So what we need to go to is just say, hey, Y chromosome players are in this league, and XY chromosome players in this league, and double X chromosome players are in this league. And I think that's what I believe that's what the Olympics are ending up going to, because then it just takes the confusion out of everything, and you don't have these tags of ladies and men, or women and men. You just have male and female, and that is brass tacks. There's no way of getting around that. There's no way that, everybody's not able to play a sport. There are people that are born with conditions that can't play a sport. So if you're born with a situation where you feel emotionally and psychologically that you cannot compete in the sport as the gender that you were born, then maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. You can do something else. Everybody's not able, not to compete in every single sport they want to. It's a bit of privilege, and the circumstances have to line up, but they don't line up for you, and that's okay.
Just, I think that's where we diverge a little bit, because I think if there's a way to create opportunities for individuals who, have their gender, I don't want to call it confusion or anything like that, but if they have a scenario where they feel like this is the gender that they are and want to live their life that way, they should have that right too. And then they can compete, though, in a scenario where they compete against others who have that same, perspective. So we're creating opportunities, but we clearly aren't taking opportunities away from young ladies who might be in a disadvantage in having to compete in that scenario. So, like I said, I'm with, if we have to create a league for females who were born as males but want to compete, then they would compete against other folks. So there's no advantage either way.
So Greg, I think my question, Chuck, let me ask this question then. You three were professionals, right? I was not fortunate enough to play professional football. I would have loved to, right? So do you think because I couldn't play at the level that you guys played at, that there should be, because I wanted it to be a professional, that they should make a league for because I felt like I deserved to play professionally too. They should just make a league.
But see, there's a market.
It shouldn't be a league for you because there's no interest in that league. And that's the very point, is that
I'm not talking about from a professional level.
I wanted to start a 6-1 and under in professional basketball league. Nobody cares. I would love to play in the NBA, but I was born away where I'm not as tall as those guys. I don't.
And that's not what I'm saying at all.
And that's just where it is. They don't create a league for me. Like I don't fit the league.
I think what Greg is saying, though, this is creating. I mean, like
I'm saying where federal money is used in schools, where federal money is used, that would be a scenario that we could set that up in schools or whatever. I'm not saying not a professional league, because there's no professional pickleball. Pickleball is a sport that people love, but there's no pickleball NBA because there's no market for it. So I'm not saying we need to go create a professional league, Troy, is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that what we need to be aware of is when we're talking about high school and places where federal money is used, that we're not taking away opportunities from young ladies and making them compete against someone who has a huge advantage over them. So if we're concerned about making sure that individuals all get a chance to compete, that we would have a division or bracket for individuals who are in that scenario.
With that. That's a drain on finances. It's a drain. And what money? What federal money? We need to take federal money to make sure that biological XY people now feel that they want to identify as women or as young ladies can dress up and identify or compete with the young ladies. There is absolutely no reasoning behind it other than you feel a certain way, and that's okay. You can feel any way you want to feel. I know it may sound ridiculous, but you can feel and identify in any fashion or form you want to. not holding you that against you, but you can't compete in tournaments and situations where sex or male and female distinctions are clearly stated, like they're defined and they're clear.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Not, huh?
I said, I think we're saying the same thing. We shouldn't.
Yes, but I don't feel like we should have a transgender league. No, we should not have a league for transgenders. We should not have a national teenage league for transgender.
I'm just saying I'm okay with that. To me, I'm okay with that from the standpoint it doesn't take away opportunities from young ladies. It doesn't take away opportunities for young men. It gives everybody an opportunity to compete. I just don't think at this stage that we're set up in a way that if we allow transgender individuals to compete in the scenarios where it will take away opportunities, that's not where we should be going.
So, Greg,
I agree with that.
Take away, Chuck, real quick here. Do you guys not think it would take away opportunities of financial? I mean, football and basketball already pay for, pretty much all the other sports in colleges. Pretty much, those are the revenue generating sports. Do you think that it would be a further drain on the revenue if they did have those transgender sports, Greg?
You would have to rewrite the rules of Title IX, I guess. Title IX was written to benefit women. So how do you? That's have a Title 10 now or something.
That's been my point from the beginning. This is going to be something where they're going to re-look at the legal ramifications of what that means. And again, I don't, really want to keep going down that road to define what that means and what the outcome of that should be. I'm just saying for me as a coach, as a dad, I don't want my daughters to lose opportunity because we're giving folks with a physical advantage the opportunity to compete against those who are, have a lower strength and size and all of that, and then they lose out because of it. And then we would be deconstructing Title IX in its essence. So what I'm saying, Troy, is that if we need to have a different division or whatever of current sports, then that to me is a better solution in order to handle this particular, this particular issue.
Science tends to advance, and because it advances, it changes, right? And so we find out different things, and we get illuminated on areas that we were in the dark ages. And speaking of dark ages, I was watching The Tudors the other day about, Henry VIII, and the Black Plague was coming out, and they thought a cure was to cut people and do bloodletting, kind of let some of the blood pour out because they thought the toxins would come out. That's how far behind they were in the science at the time. So let's fast forward to where we are, and we understand certain things now. I don't think we understand the total psychology behind, gender issues and how they fit. But we do know a lot of what people think are definitions of gender are basically just social constructs. Dresses are social constructs. You could go back to different cultures, and men wore skirts. In Scotland, they wore skirts. So,
kilts and stuff,
it just depends on where you are in the time. Hair, the length of hair, makeup. In different, you go to different cultures at different times, makeup and hair were, depending on where you were, could define anything. So these are modern day definitions of what,
just like race is a modern day construct. I get what you're saying.
It is kind of a modern day construct. So we can't base an entire science that we understand. We can't throw that out the window on something that's right now is not even a science. It's just trends. They're just social trends. And we don't understand the total psychology behind it. And we feel for people who feel a certain way. And I want them to be as healthy as they can be, but that's within boundaries and that's within restraints. And we have institutions already set up. We have them set up for safety reasons, for specific biological safety reasons There's no way that you can come in with social constructs and knock that off of its hinges. You can't compare the two. They're just totally different.
Absolutely. Don, would you like the last word on this?
Well, I think we, we hit all the major points. I think like I said, I just don't feel like it's a fair scenario for women in the future, for women's sports. I think women's sports is in danger, as we knew it before. As far as all we want is a fair, equal opportunity for women to compete against other women. I mean, that's as simple as that. I don't think it's nothing. There's nothing against anybody. I think you have the right to be who you want to be, but you don't have the right to infringe on the rights of others either. So I think, I think women like my girls, for an example, I don't think it's fair for them to have to compete against biologically men. So that's just my point of view.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, fellas, man, that was an absolutely awesome conversation. I know there's going to be a lot of folks that's going to have a lot to say about that. Please comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you feel. If you agree with us, tell us that. If you think we're assholes, tell us that too. We want to hear what you have to say. Please like, subscribe, and make sure you check us out next time. For myself and for the big dogs, have a good week. Peace.